Hey yo guys, I'm back here to give you my reviews of both the UFC 101 Declaration pay-per-view as well as the WEC 42 show that took place live on Versus in the United States as well as TSN2 in Canada. I gotta say that for UFC 101, I thought it was a okay card. Really, Anderson Silva saved it from being a terrible card. Anderson Silva and Forrest Griffin fight saved it from being a completely terrible card, and BJ Penn as well. BJ Penn and Kenny Florian, delivering a solid fight. Maybe not what I thought it would be, but still a solid type of a fight. But anyways, I'll review that card first, but I guess before I get into that, WEC 42 was easily a way better show. Very exciting. I mean, not a single boring fight on this card. Maybe a questionable decision victory, but other than that, everything was great. And the finish to the main event, completely shocking, which is one of the things you live for in this sport, and proves why this sport is one of the most unpredictable sports in the world. Anyways, we started things off on UFC 101 with Kurt Pellegrino versus Josh Neer. This fight didn't go the way I thought it would go. I mean, I knew both guys were actually pretty good on the ground and all, but I didn't expect the entire fight to be there. We all know I thought Neer and Pellegrino were actually going to have a stand-up battle, but really it was Pellegrino getting the takedown from the opening minutes in the first round and kept the fight there most of the time. He won a majority decision. I believe he got 30-27 all across the board. I would disagree, as I thought really in the first round it was Neer fighting very well off of his back to win the round, in my opinion. I thought, just because Pellegrino was on top doesn't really necessarily mean you're winning. I gotta, do some action. I thought they're Neer. He's working. He's trying for survival. He's trying for positionings. He almost caught Pellegrino in a couple submission attempts, couple arm bars. But, it was not to be really. Then it was, from that point on, Pellegrino was got a takedown, got it in control, and he did more work on top, and was able to avoid submission attempts. I mean, Neer had a couple chances, but it was nothing like, oh my god, this is maybe it, like it was in the first round. So, in my opinion, I had Kurt Pellegrino winning this fight 29-28. He won the fight 30-27 across the board. Neer was very upset with himself, probably because he knew he could have done better, and that, his last flurry with actually some vicious elbows towards the end just wasn't enough to get it done. But yeah, it was a surprising fight. I'll say that because, like I said, it went the way I didn't think it would go, but it was still there. I mean, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world. Like, it was a fight you expect to get going in here. Maybe not this card in general was the type of a card the UFC had feared going into a new market, because a lot of the fights were on the ground, and a lot of them were boring fights on the ground, and especially in a new market, and especially that market being Philadelphia. They didn't. I think they were a little bit worried. They got their booing out of the system in the first fight, in the Jesse Lennox fight, which was a good thing. But I was happy to see that they didn't completely go all out, but booing people. But still, maybe not as impressive of a debut as the UFC wanted into Philadelphia. Then we went to the next fight. It was Ricardo Almeida versus Kendall Grove. Really, this one was not that interesting of a fight as well. Kendall Grove, will he be back on the bubble? Most likely. I mean, Kendall Grove is all this potential, and he hasn't lived up to it. I mean, he's got incredible size and incredible reach. He had an incredible reach on Almeida, and he didn't use that at all. Really, this fight kind of went how I thought it would. It was Almeida getting it to the ground, or he at least had it in the clinch where he wanted it, and, I got it to the ground. There was a moment there in the second round that Grove actually almost submitted Ricardo Almeida, where he had a very nice-looking armbar, a very tight one, too, I should say. And if Grove had not changed his positioning with his hands, he probably would have submitted Almeida, as Almeida in the press conference after couldn't really move that arm that it was caught in there, and that was just something that maybe Grove would have got the win there if he just hadn't changed the hands there. Like I said, Almeida couldn't move his arms, and said, look, if he didn't switch his hands, I probably would have had to tap. But other than that, it was just Almeida going, controlling the fight on the ground and winning the fight. Because of that, decent attempt in the second round, it actually almost submitted him. I had to give the round to Grove. He won another one, 29-28 in my opinion, and that fight ended almost exactly the same way as Near Pellegrino did, with Grove, throwing some elbows towards the end of the fight. And that was just that. With Kendall Grove, I think this card is going to have two guys that could be potentially released in Talus Latis and Kendall Grove. Now, Dana White said Talus Latis will not get released, but I'm not going to believe that. This is the same man who also said we're never doing stadium shows, and yet at the press conference after said we're going to freaking run Fenway Park. So, whatever. Then we went to the next fight. It was Amir Sadallah's post-Ultimate Fighter debut against Johnny Hendricks, also making his UFC debut. And this was an interesting fight, a very controversial one. As Sadallah came out, threw a couple leg kicks to the inside leg kicks, and kind of got a little bit careless, I'll say. Let his hands low, and you can't really do that someone with as much power as Johnny Hendricks has. I would definitely thought that Sadallah had the better striking going into this. And, Hendricks' biggest weight for that, I thought, going was getting a takedown, but he just had to be aware of Sadallah's submission game. So when he threw a nice flurry that, it did drop Sadallah, but Sadallah I don't think was out. I think it was one of those flash knockdowns, but it wasn't even a bad flash knockdown, as he was still out. I mean, he was still up. I mean, he was looking right up at Hendricks, just trying to get up, and referee Dan Murgliata makes the stoppage. It's a bad stoppage. It's not the worst stoppage I've ever seen. It's a bad one. It's a tough break for Amir Sadallah. Will these two get a rematch? Maybe. I think that would be fair for both guys, for Sadallah at least, and and probably for Hendricks, because there will be so much controversy over this. But still, it was just more to the fact that Dan Murgliata was a little bit out of position. He was behind the fighter. He was behind Johnny Hendricks, actually. And once he saw, Sadallah drop, he just stopped it right away. Just, protect him. I still don't think that was the right call, but still, it wasn't the worst stoppage I've ever seen. The worst stoppage that I probably have ever seen goes to our next fight. Next fight was Shane Nelson versus Aaron Riley. Man, was this a boring fight. This was a terrible fight. Let me just say that, I appreciate groundwork and everything, but at least try something. I mean, Shane Nelson was done after the first round cardio-wise, and he just didn't look like he belonged it here at all, really. Like I said, the first meeting these two guys had at UFC 96 on the undercard had probably I believe it was UFC 96, was the worst stoppage I think I've ever seen. Nelson knocked down Riley, and it wasn't even, a bad knockdown at all, and the ref just, no, this is it. What? He's clearly in the fight. Terrible stoppage there. UFC did the right thing, got this fight happening again, and probably doesn't want to use that referee ever again. But anyways, yeah, this was not good at all. It was just Riley, 3 rounds of laying on him, basically. Not even, really attempting the striking at all. Just basically laying on him, and, Nelson didn't even make a fight out of it. Joe Rogan said that, basically, Shane Nelson should move down to 145 pounds and fight in the featherweight division in the WEC. I'm pretty sure Shane Nelson would do it maybe for a career benefit, but he definitely wants to try and make it at 155, as you're making better money in the UFC at lightweight, so I don't know. I thought the interesting part of this whole fight was the fact that a fight broke out in the crowd, and Joe Rogan basically said, yeah, the fight in the crowd's way better than this fight that's going on in our screen, and, if you look in my favorites, I have the fight in there, so, yeah, not really a great of a fight. It was 30-27 across the board, and I completely agree. Aaron Riley gets the win. Then we go to our co-main event of the evening, the big super fight. Anderson Silva makes his second fight at light heavyweight, taking on former light heavyweight champion Forrest Griffin. And man, did Anderson Silva show that he's fucking great. This was just domination. This made up for both the Cote and latest debacles that happened. Well, I'm not really going to blame the Cote fight more on Silva. I think he was getting ready to warm up, and an unfortunate incident happened to Patrick Cote's knee. But the UFC 97 fight with Talasaitis, that's a whole different story. I've already talked about it. But this one, he made Forrest Griffin look like he never had a fight before. He made him look pretty tough. Like, this was incredible. He knocked him down first, you know, with a nice combination that was very well put together, and knocked him down. Forrest, all right. He got up. You know, they shook hands, knocked him down again. He's like, okay, you know what, I better get things going. Shook hands. You know, Forrest really wasn't happy with doing that one this time. He's like, look, I got to get things going. And then Forrest goes and throws a combination. Silva just bobs and weaves out of it, not even, you know, touching him like he did against Rich Franklin. And then he just, as Forrest keeps coming forward, he just gives him a little push on the chin. And Forrest went down like nothing. Like, this was one of the most embarrassing knockouts ever. So, this not only shows that, you know, if you hit someone in the right spot, you'll go down. I mean, I think that's been known for a while, but a lot of people are like, oh, man, you know, like, that was the same type of punch that Seth Petrozelli hit Kimbo Slice on. And people are like, man, Kimbo's got a glass jaw. You know, I don't think it's really that. He just hit him in the perfect spot. This is the same thing. He hit him in the perfect spot. It just looked really, really bad. So, Anderson Silva wins, looks freaking incredible, redeems himself, redeems the UFC's faith in him, which obviously brings up the potential of who the hell's going to fight this guy next. In reality, I mean, Dan Henderson, yeah, but Dan Henderson better take this goddamn fight to the ground, as Forrest was the perfect opponent for Silva to look great, of just a guy throwing strikes and leg kicks. That's Silva's freaking game. And the fact that Forrest likes to dictate the pace, that's Silva's freaking game. He loves to counter-strike. So, really the only guy I think that could maybe pose a chance at beating this Anderson Silva is Fedor, but that'll never happen. I would really like to see that fight, personally, but I don't think we will. And then, of course, we went to the main event of the evening. It was BJ Penn versus Kenny Florian for the UFC lightweight title. Oh, but I guess before I get to that, and then after Forrest gets, you know, dropped, he basically gets up and just runs out of the frickin' cage. You know, run, Forrest, run. That sure as hell did happen. And we have not heard of Forrest Griffin since last Saturday night. And I don't know where he ran to. Forrest is definitely an emotional guy, takes fighting very seriously, which I definitely respect, but may take losses maybe a little bit too hard. And I don't know, you know, the fact that, you know, fighting a loss is definitely a lot tougher on someone than you would really think it would be, like in a team sport. Like, think about it, all this time and preparation going in to it with all your camps and stuff and getting these game plans, and then you go out there and have that kind of performance and run out there. It's not gonna. You're gonna take that very hard, and, you know, leads to depression and stuff. I mean, hell, look at Andrei Arlovski with the fact that, you know, UFC's not interested in him. You know, that devastating loss to Brett Rogers. He was playing Russian roulette the past couple weeks, so very depressed about, you know, that loss. And, you know, one day, and I hope it's not in this near future, we're gonna see a fighter die because of taking a loss so hard, of, you know, a suicide-inflicted death. And it's gonna happen, people, but hopefully not for a very long time. Anyways, on to the main event here. It's BJ Penn versus Kenny Florian for the UFC lightweight title. This fight was kind of what I thought it would be, in a tactical battle, and it was that. But it didn't get to the ground as quickly as I thought it would. You know, Kenny Florian really tried to get it there. He burnt up a lot of energy getting it there, trying to get it there the whole fight. And BJ eventually took it there, and if Kenny did take BJ down, I think it would have been a shorter night for Kenny Florian, as BJ absolutely dominated Kenny Florian on the ground before, you know, taking his back and delivering some Hoist Gracie kicks right to the liver or into the midsection, and then getting on the rear naked choke for the victory. But, you know, Penn had, you know, a nice sprout at the end of the first round where he threw that knee when Florian was against the cage, basically the same way he finished off Sean Shirk at UFC 84. And was nice there. You know, Florian definitely, to me, he won the second round. It was a very close round, but I thought he was just a little bit more aggressive. I'm not going to say Florian got blown out of the water, but I think the second round, to me, he won it. It can go either way. If you thought Penn won every round, I'm really not going to debate you on that, but that's just my opinion there. And it was just, you know, a very tactical battle. I thought it was going to be more tactical on the ground, but it was actually a very clinch game of a fight there. So Penn retains, and I don't know where we go from here. Obviously, he's going to fight Diego Sanchez next, and I think that should be a very exciting fight. But, Kenny looked very dejected, as well he should be. I mean, he's a definitely very improved guy since that last fight against Sean Shirk. Well, his last fight for the title, I should say, against Sean Shirk. But, I don't know where he's going to go. I don't know where Kenny Flores can go. Kenny, I always thought, Kenny will be a great guy. He'll get a chance at a title. I don't think he's championship material. That's just me personally, but anyways, overall, that ended the night in a kind of a lackluster card. At least, you got into it with Anderson Silva, Forrest Griffin, and Penn and Florian did have its moments, but really the rest of the main card and the undercard were pretty boring stuff. Oh, actually, I should say, before we end the pay-per-view, they showed the best preliminary fight, which was the George Sotiropoulos versus George Roop fight, and this was a very, very actually one-sided affair, but it wasn't a boring one-sided affair that you normally get in mixed martial arts sometimes. Sotiropoulos came in, got a takedown, and did some incredible transitioning from, one side of the body up to like a position up to the top of Roop's head, where I thought he was going to go for a north-south choke, but he just went to the other side and was looking for that Kimura the whole fight. And I'll give George Roop credit. I mean, George Roop was definitely outclassed in this one on the ground, and, it definitely showed in the fight, and going in, you thought the same thing. But, Roop had his moments. He used the cage walk to get up, and he threw a nice, series of combinations to keep Sotiropoulos at bay for, a couple seconds, but still to keep him at bay, I thought it was nice enough there. But then, the second round, Roop threw a flying knee that got caught, got taken down, and Sotiropoulos, when he went for this Kimura, this looked really like he was trying to take George Roop's freaking arm off, take it back to his house with him. He just yanked and got the Kimura submission. Very nicely done there by George Sotiropoulos. It's a very good performance for him to look good. It was much like, Anderson Silva and Forrest Griffin later that happened in the night, but like I said, he looked really good, but that's because, George Roop really doesn't have that much of a ground game. I don't know what's going to happen with Roop either. I think Roop could be effective in the featherweight division as well. I don't know about cutting that much weight. I think he could do it. If he was in the featherweight division, he'd definitely have a big height advantage over a lot of the guys there. He's a really tall lightweight himself, so we'll see where things go in there. But like I said, George Sotiropoulos looked really impressive. Hopefully he can, make it to a main card on an Ultimate Fight Night type show. So, anyways, that's just my thoughts there. Overall, this was a thumbs in the middle night of fights. So, that's just my thoughts on that. But then we went to last night's show. The WEC show from the Pearl at the Palm. The Joint Hard Rock and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. This was a very great show. Let me just put it this way. This was a great show. A lot of fights went the distance. Only 2 did not. But it wasn't like, oh, these are just one side. These are boring. No, these were very entertaining, high-caliber, quality fights. And if you haven't watched the WEC yet, you're missing out. You're missing out on some great action here. It was nice to see the WEC bump up the Leonard Garcia versus Jamil Masu fight. I thought this was a very good fight to start the night off. You had Garcia, throw an incredible right hand that absolutely dropped Masu. You could hear this punch echo probably through the whole building, and it came out very loud on television as well. And I'm like, okay, now Garcia's going to get on top and just ground and pound him, and we're going to be done. Jamil Masu showed incredible heart, came back, was able to actually get standing up and, kind of come at Garcia with a couple combinations. Definitely didn't win the round, but definitely kept it from being a 10-8 round or anything of that nature. Masu then came back, had a Darce choke on Garcia that actually looked like he could have finished him if he didn't let it go, and him letting it go was really a weird situation. As I did not understand why he let that go. He probably didn't think he had him deep or anything, and deep enough in there, but he just let it go, and that was unfortunate there. As Masu probably could have put Garcia away, and then he he won that round in my opinion. And then the third round, both guys were definitely tired. Garcia was tired, and he admitted this in his interview after that. After that knockdown, he lost a lot of the energy. Masu probably lost a lot of the energy burning his arms out trying to get this Darce choke on. and no one really came forward. Garcia just threw the big strikes, and that looked nice. Because considering Masoud, yeah, Masoud threw a couple leg kicks, but that's just not enough to win that type of a round. I gave this one 29-28 Garcia, and 2 judges did as well. It was a split decision victory for Leonard Garcia. Moving along, we go to the next fight. It was a potential #1 contender fight for the Bantamweight Championship in Takeya Mizugaki taking on Jeff Curran. This one was a little bit slower than I thought it would be. I thought this was actually going to be a stand-up war, as we all saw Mizugaki versus Torres and how he can pack a punch and really dictate it. And Curran's got a really strong striking game as well. But this one went to the ground the whole fight, actually. I saw the first round for Curran. I thought that he did a little bit more work on the ground, throwing the better strikes on the ground, and he just controlled the positioning very well. So that's why I gave the first round to Curran. Second round, we were back on the ground as well. I thought, Mizugaki did a good job fighting off his, on top there. He did a good job fighting there. He threw the better strikes, and he got caught in a guillotine late in the round, but it wasn't anything dangerous. That was one of those things, I think, where a fighter, grabs a guillotine just to make it look pretty for the judges. So that's why I gave that round to Mizugaki. The third round was definitely a Curran round. It was kind of even going in towards the end of it. But then, Curran did this incredible shifting of the hips and threw on this triangle choke that looked impressive. And I thought, man, he's going to sub Mizugaki. Mizugaki showed the heart, was able to get out of it, able to stay alive and not tap. And I thought for sure this is going to give Curran the fight. It's a split decision victory for Takeya Mizugaki. I disagree with that one. I had it 29-28 Curran. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure I thought everyone in the building thought that, Mizugaki was done after that. I mean, that was the most jaw-dropping or most effective move of the whole fight, and Jeff Curran had it. I thought he definitely won that. Curran looked so dejected, and, rightfully so. Mizugaki steals one from Curran. Moving along, we go to the next fight. It's Ricardo Lamas versus Danny Castillo. This one was a very exciting fight as well. Very great, I should say, even a great fight. It was 2 wrestlers throwing the striking, which is something that I think we all got to become to. And you put 2 great wrestlers against each other, they're more or less going to throw the strikes. And that's exactly what happened here. Both guys threw incredible stuff there. Lamas was definitely getting the better of Castillo. But then in the second round, Castillo looked kind of done. Or, excuse me, Lamas looked kind of done. He definitely wasn't getting to the punch there. Castillo came back, threw some great shots. He leveled Ricardo Lamas with a right hand that spun Lamas around and down, and then he got, punched a couple more times. I'd say it's a TKO victory. I don't know if you want to call it a knockout. To me, it's more of a TKO. TKO victory for Danny Castillo. And he looked really big. He was losing the first round. Not incredibly bad. It's like, oh my god, that's a big comeback. But still, he was losing the round, in my opinion. Came back and had the better striking. I don't know what his corner told him, but definitely was the right stuff to tell him. And then we went to the next fight. It was Joseph Benavidez versus Dominick Cruz. Very, very exciting fight. Dominick Cruz had probably the best cardio I've seen in a while on any fighter. I mean, I don't know someone who had, such a strong pace from round 1 to round 3. He just kept moving here, man. Really, Cruz kept dictating the tempo, and I thought Benavidez threw the better strikes. Yeah, Cruz got a takedown in the first round, but Benavidez was able to get right back up and move very quickly to get things going. So I gave Benavidez the round there. I thought, he did maybe a little bit more work, and, the takedowns didn't do anything, and just able to get back up and do the better work there. The second round I gave to Cruz as he had a couple of takedowns in there, a nice one at the very end, and that was basically enough for me to win the round. Both guys were just very effective in the striking department there. And then the third round was another great round. The final, there was a big takedown there, and it was a scramble for Cruz to get a rear naked choke on, and he almost did, but Joseph Benavidez is just so quick as well, was able to scramble out of it and control, to get out of it and, avoid the submission, but it wasn't enough. To me, it was a Dominick Cruz 29-28 victory, and 2 of the judges saw it that way. 1 judge went across the board for Cruz. And you know what? In that first round, it was very close to call, in my opinion. It's not one I'm going to complain with you if you gave it to Cruz as well. But really a great fight. And it looks like it'll be Dominic Cruz getting the next title shot in the bantamweight division, as, you know, Mizugaki didn't look that impressive at all, and he kind of won a fluky victory, so I definitely think you give this fight to Dominic Cruz. And he was going to meet the winner of this fight, and was Miguel Angel Torres defending his bantamweight championship against Brian Bowles. And this one was shocking. The ATT camp has done it again in the WEC, throwing an incredible upset in the world of mixed martial arts in this promotion to the second top fighter, you know, second marketable guy in this company. First, ATT does it with Mike Brown back at WEC 36, knocking out Uriah Faber. Now they do it again with Brian Bowles knocking out Miguel Angel Torres. This fight was very good for, you know, the 3 minutes it was. A very good fight. You could definitely tell things were going to be up for when the first shot of the fight was from Bowles. He threw this strike, and it's the first time I think we've ever seen Torres, you know, get rocked and wobbly where he goes down to a knee. Torres did, you know, showing the heart of a champion, come back, and he threw a great flurry of, you know, strikes, and it looked like, oh my god, Bowles is in trouble here. It looks like Torres is going to wrap up Bowles. But Bowles, you know, while protecting up, throws this beautiful counter strike, and Torres goes down, and then he hits like 5 clean shots to the face of Torres, absolutely knocking him out. And we have a new WEC bantamweight champion in Brian Bowles. And a lot of people are saying, man, WEC is going to be dead. You know, they don't have, you know, their 2 of their top fighters are, you know, they don't have championships, and, you know, Mike Brown doesn't have charisma. To me, Brian Bowles is a marketable fighter. Look, he's got the face of a church child, you know, that goes to church every Sunday, and you can market him as this, you know, nice guy, but when he gets in the cage, he'd kill you, and he definitely will do that. He's got that type of charisma, like, you know, when Arn Anderson had, where he doesn't have charisma, but he has it. That's what I think Brian Bowles has. I really do believe Brian Bowles does have that type of charisma. You know, he's actually a pretty good interview. A very exciting fighter. I knew this fight was going to be very good because, like, I've seen a lot of the Bowles fights. I've seen a lot of the Torres fights for sure. This was going to be a great night of fights, and it was. Definitely lived to my expectation. I'm just really amped for September now for the interim lightweight title between Donald Cerrone and Ben Henderson. That should be a really exciting night of fights. But really, that's going to be it for me. I am out. Peace.